The number one question I get asked every other day on phone calls, text messages, and emails is, I have another person, I want to bring them to America, it's my girlfriend or boyfriend, significant other, I love them so much. What's better, fiance visa or a marriage-based visa? In this video, I'm going to talk about, in the next 5 minutes, what's the best option for you. Hi, my name is Mohammad Saleem. I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing for 13 years now. And in this video, I'm going to answer questions about whether a fiance visa is better for you or a marriage-based visa, and which one should you do? Because everybody wants to know what's the best one, and oftentimes they're like, what's the fastest one? So in this video, we're going to cover fiance visa first and then a marriage-based visa to talk about the differences and the benefits of one versus the other. Okay, so again, that question I get asked all the time. What's the best option, Mr. Saleem? I fell in love with this girl in Italy. I want to have her come here. Or I fell in love with this person in the Dominican Republic. I want to have him come here as soon as possible. So the first thing when you're talking about it is, bringing somebody from another country, you have to look at the option of whether they qualify for a fiance visa. The reason why that's important is if you're already married religiously or other type of marriage, you may not qualify, because if you're married, you can't just bring that person into America on a fiance visa. And the government, if they find out, they might deny your case, or you'll just waste time, and then they'll tell you to start a marriage-based visa, which I'll talk about later. So talking about the fiance visa, so what are the general requirements for the fiance visa? Well, first of all, on a fiance visa, you have to actually have met the person in the last 2 years or so. That's really important, that in-person meeting. People tell me all the time, well, I saw her a long time ago when I was a young kid, or a young, when we were younger, or I know her from back home, or whatever their situation is. It doesn't matter. The rules are really strict. They do require an in-person meeting. So that's the first thing. Again, in-person meeting in the last 2 years. So you got to get a trip. You got to make a trip to go out there, meet her in person, and do something that shows that you have commitment. So fiance visas, again, are on the assumption that you're in some sort of relationship that's more than just a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. So when we file fiance visa petitions, we submit evidence such as, do you have an engagement ring that you bought for her? Did you meet with her, spend time with her and her family? Is there some sort of mutual understanding? That's all evidence part of the case. Okay, so fiance visa, that's the evidence that's necessary in terms of the requirements, the forms. They're very easy to fill out, but the evidence is the key part. Now, a lot of people will ask me, Mr. Saleem, the most important thing for me is to be with him or her as soon as possible. Is fiance visa fast, and what are the steps and what are the requirements for that person to get here? So the first step is to file a petition with USCIS, okay? Because you can't get a fiance visa until USCIS reviews the case, approves the case here in the United States, and then sends it overseas to the embassy for processing. And there's a lot of steps that go on the fiance visa. Okay, so you've got the USCIS steps here in the United States. After approval, it gets sent overseas to the embassy for scheduling for the interview. Then you have to do all the paperwork for the fiance visa application, submit documents and so forth, and just prepare the person to be ready to ask questions about, like, when did you meet the person? Do you know the person? How often do you talk to the person? So there's a lot of steps that go that way. And sometimes that visa step is really hard because there's some countries, let's say in Central America, or in Latin America, or in Africa, the embassies are so backed up that they don't have interviews available for these visas. I have a client on a fiance visa from Ethiopia, and she's been waiting for like almost 2.5 years to get the embassy to schedule the interview. So there's some issues on that end that you want to talk to an attorney and understand if that option's good for you. Now, the next stage is after that the fiance visa interview takes place, the person comes to America, and you must get married in 90 days. Everybody knows, that 90-day fiance show. Well, look, I've been doing this for years and years, and the only way the government is going to give this person a green card is that in 90 days they have to get married. I'll say it again. You've got to get married in 90 days. If you don't get married, they will have problems. And what I mean by problems for that immigrant is, the government will say, you didn't get married, you got to go back home. And you can't be like, well, I'm going to marry another person and get a green card through that other person. doesn't work like that. That fiance visa is only for that person to come in, get married to that person in 90 days, and then that person, the citizen petitions and applies for the green card for that immigrant who's coming on the fiance visa. All right, so that's a fiance visa. Now let's talk about what a marriage-based visa is, which is, oftentimes based upon like an I-130 petition. We do a lot of those in our office. In fact, the last couple of years, we've probably done like hundreds of them, working on different types of applications that people have done themselves or they do with us. Okay, on a marriage-based petition, the key factor is that you've already established your marriage, your relationship with that other person. So you need a marriage document, you need other types of evidence showing that you have an intention to live your life with that person. The evidence is more than a fiance visa because you don't need to go to court, you don't need to register your marriage, you don't need to do anything. You just have to have a relationship and maybe you have some rings. But on this side, you've got to have a lot more evidence in terms of what you can show to the government for your case. All right, so aside from the bona fide evidence that you're filing as part of your case, you have to be aware that there's going to be certain financial obligations because once immigration approves your case, you're going to have to submit a financial sponsorship document for this person that's coming to America. That's part of the consular processing that's going to take place. So on the marriage-based visa petition, you file it with USCIS, it gets approved, it gets sent to the National Visa Center where they collect your documents. They're going to ask for civil documents, they're going to ask for financial documents. So, if a person's watching this video, they're like, wow, I got to give all my tax returns, I got to give my financial information. Yes, you do if you want this person to get a green card. Because they're going to give a green card to that person at the time of the interview on a marriage-based visa. Whereas on the fiance visa, you're going to have to show the evidence and the financial documents in the United States after you get married. So there is more evidence required and a higher burden of proof for you to establish you have the financial ability to do that. Okay, so that's just part of the process. But the good thing about the marriage-based visa is that once the interview takes place for that person in the embassy, they get a stamped visa, and the visa says it's a green card. They come to America and they get their physical green card in the mail here. But they're good. They're solid. They have a green card, whether it's a conditional green card or maybe even a 10-year green card. You're in good standing as an immigrant because you don't have to worry about the fact that the other person's going to marry you or not because you're already married. Okay, so those are the general, steps and the directions. The question I get asked, and I'm going to answer it now because I presented it to you, what's better? And by what are better, my clients are often like, what's faster? I just want to get her here. I met her. I'm crazy about her. I want to start my life with her right away. What's the fastest way? And a long time ago, that's before COVID, fiance visas used to be pretty fast. You could get a visa case filed in a couple of months. They would get approved here. They would send to the embassy. And then, boom, this person's here in like under a year or so. But COVID changed a lot. And part of the problems with COVID is that it created embassy delays. And as a result of the embassy delays, what happened is that, immigration started prioritizing marriage-based visas more than fiance visas. So a lot of my clients who did fiance visas, around the time of COVID, they're just getting frustrated. They're like, what's going on? The shutdowns really hurt us because the embassies reprioritized processing for marriage-based cases and marriage-based visas. So now when you look at processing times and what's happening, marriage-based visas, even though there's more evidence and documents required, are, in my humble legal opinion, they're processing faster. Because I'm still doing fiance-based visas and they are taking a little bit longer and so forth. So that's one of the things that I just want to emphasize to you right now, 2023, marriage-based visas are going faster than fiance-based visas. And that's important. That may change in the future or it may get worse in the future, but that's what's happening now in terms of the real situation. Okay, now the other question that people ask me is that, hey, what happens if things don't work out or something else doesn't work out? Well, on a fiance visa, it happens. People, break apart, their relationships, go through ups and downs. On that, it's not much in terms of consequences. You can always withdraw your petition. But with a marriage-based one, because you're officially married, you may want to get properly divorced, whether it's in the United States or overseas. And then you've also submitted financial documents in support of this immigrant. So if he or she comes to America and you separate later, the government may say there is some sort of responsibility for you because you filed a petition, you signed the affidavit of support for you to be responsible for that person. So there's some things to think about and understand as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys watching our channel. If you're a subscriber and you comment, we're gonna do our best to answer. So thank you. Hit the subscribe button. Like us as well. We really appreciate it. We're doing this for our community so we can give back and help immigrants understand what's the best options for you.